Hi everyone. So here I am today working on my mulberry leaf pattern. This is eight stitches and 12 rows pattern with eyelets on pegs 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 and 11. That means all the odd rows are eyelet rows and all the even rows are units. I'll be demonstrating on a hat. I'm working on a small child's hat on half an inch 66 peg loom, and I'm using 40 pegs of this loom. So to begin knitting the pattern, I have knitted a 2-inch tall hat brim, which is knitted with using two E-wraps and two E-wrap knit and two purl, and knitted it until the width is or the height of this brim is 2 inches. It's always a good idea to familiarize yourself with the pattern before you started to knitting it. And I generally work with charts because that is the best visual representation of the pattern I'm knitting. So when we are knitting laces, we need to see focus on the pegs on which eyelets are creating, because these eyelets are the main element that creates the lacy structure. So on pegs 1, 3, and 5, eyelets are made on different pegs. Whereas on pegs row 7 and row 9 and row 11, the pattern is exactly the same repeated 3 times, and eyelets are on the same pegs. So let's begin knitting row 1. Row 1 says yarn over SSK slip slip knit, which is the right slanting knit, and then knit 3 and then K2 together, which is the left slanting knit, and then yarn over and then 1 knit. Let's do that. It says yarn over and SSK. For yarn over, the yarn over is on first peg of the 8 stitch pattern. I'm only going to show you one repeat of the pattern. This is peg 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm going to demonstrate how these 8 pegs are worked. So on peg 1 is the eyelet, and by creating an SSK, so we're going to lift and place it on the next peg, which is left slanting, and knit it. Knit 1 and knit 2. Then there are 3 units. Unit 1, unit 2, and unit 3. And now there is a knit 2 together. Knit 2 together is when you lift a stitch from left side and bring it to the right side like this, and knit them together. And then there is 1 unit. So this completes the row 1. Knitting the third row now, which is an eyelet row. It is knit 1, yarn over, SSK, then again a unit, then knit 2 together, a yarn over, and then 2 knits. Let's do that. The pegs are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. From this peg to this peg there are 8 pegs, and so knit 1, and then there is SSK. For SSK, I'll lift the stitch from peg 2 and place it on peg 3, so peg 2 is empty for the eyelet, and knit these 2 together. And then there is 1 unit, and then we have knit 2 together. Knit 2 together is knitted on the 5th peg of this 8 stitch pattern, and for knitting 2 together is shifting the stitch backwards, that is towards the right side. So I'll lift the stitch from peg 5 and bring it on peg, peg 6 and bring it on peg 5 and knit 2 together. The yarn over is the eyelet. We will pass the working yarn in front of the empty peg and knit the peg next to it. So there are 2 units, so we'll knit 2. That is simple row 3, the eyelet row. Knitting row 5 now, and the 5th row is again an eyelet row, and here we are not going to do SSK or K2 together. We will, in order to make an eyelet and move the stitch, we will use a technique which is called CDD, central double decrease. Central double decrease is worked on 3 pegs. There are 3 stitches in a center peg, and one stitch, we will lift one stitch from each side of that peg, bring it to a central peg, and creating 3 stitches in the central peg and knitting it. Let's see how we do it. So the 5th row, the eyelet row, is knit 2, yarn over, CDD, which is central double decrease, and then yarn over and then knit 2, and there is a purl here. So knit 2 and then central double decrease is to be knitted on 1, 2, 3, 4th peg. Right? This is the 4th peg. There is a stitch here. We will lift the stitch from peg 3, bring it on peg 4, another stitch from peg 5, bring it backwards on peg 4. So see, the peg 4 has 3 stitches now, which is, and there is a yarn over on each side of this central double decrease, and I'll knit all of them 3 one by one. There is a yarn over eyelet formed on peg 3, and then an eyelet is on peg 5, and then there is 2 unit, and the last peg, the 8th one, is a purl. So here goes the purl. This completes the 5th row, which is an eyelet row of the pattern. Knitting the 7th row now, which is another eyelet row. Now on the 7th row, knit 2 together is on the first peg. So we will move one stitch from peg 2, bring it backwards on peg 1, and there are 2 stitches here for knit 2 together. Eyelet here is on peg 3 and on peg 5. So what we would do, we will move the stitch from peg 3, shift it on peg 2 to clear to make the 3rd peg empty. For this row, I'm going to set up the stitches first and then knit. This is another way of knitting lace. But then for this, you have to have your previous unit row very, very loose. Okay. Now, eyelet 3 is empty for peg 3 is empty for eyelet. Then peg 4 is knit. Peg 5 is a eyelet again, and peg 7 is SSK. So let's move the stitch from peg 6 to peg 7. There are 2 stitches here. When we move this side, it is left side, it is SSK, and bring the stitch from peg 5 to peg 6. We have to shift the stitches. In the previous stitches rows that I have demonstrated, there was no shifting, but here there is shifting, which basically makes the curve of the pattern. So K2 top on first row, then is a knit, then eyelet, then you make 1 unit, empty peg for eyelet, and then 1 knit, and then SSK, and last peg is a purl. Good thing is that the next 2 eyelet rows, which is peg 9 and peg 11, will be knitted the same way. Exactly the same thing you will repeat in the next 2 eyelet rows as well. So that is it. It's very simple. So happy looming, everyone.